was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Hey, welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio Show with Sam and John. Hey, Sam.
Hey, how are you? Just making sure we are up and running here on the social media.
Oh yeah, it looks great on the pages right now. I know we had some wind problems and some storm problems come through Texas. I hope everything on your end is okay.
We did a lot of cleanup today. Put some lawn furniture back where it's supposed to be. And yeah, it's still blowing about the gusts of 45. So hopefully the wind gods will be with us tonight and we won't have any weirdness go on with Ernie.
Awesome.
But it's been just like the weather's been wild. It's been a wild time for our law enforcement officers out there. Specifically, as you know, or maybe people don't know, we got a border crisis going on, and a lot happening with our law enforcement down there. The reports are not good, despite, if you're watching mainstream media, I'm just saying the reports from the actual officers are things are not good. So whatever news organization you choose to listen to, you may not be getting the full story. They don't feel safe. They're not getting direction from command. And it is a very confusing time. I feel like we're handling, for all intents and purposes, a refugee crisis. Local PDs, even the guys and gals in DHS, they're talking about now dispatching Secret Service down there. No, it's not the way it's supposed to go. The Dallas PD is now on alert that we may be receiving 3,000 young people being housed at Kay Bailey Hutchinson's the conference center. Folks, make no mistake about it. Law enforcement continues to be caught in the middle of this. The politics surrounding this are ugly, and nobody seems to be able to get a straight answer. So like we end the show, I always start my day just getting up, praying for all the first responders everywhere that are trying now to keep us safe, our borders safe.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They threw open the south gate, and this flood of the immigration flood is coming in droves every day, which is taxing, really putting our border patrol officers in such stressful positions. Their interactions daily have raised over 1,000%, which makes it even more dangerous. For some of the people that are trying to get over into our country and coming through our borders are, innocent families trying to make for a better life, but there are some very shady characters that are also trying to make their way into our country, which puts our Border Patrol officers in very high risk situations. And it's only a matter of time before something goes south real soon. And I really, I hate to say that, because if you're looking across the nation, and I'm sure you see it all the time, Sam, too, with social media, we hear more and more about the police shootings and the cops being shot on routine things. We had a cop shot in a I think it was a J.C. Penney's for a shoplifting incident. Mm-hmm. We had a SWAT officer shot the other day. We've had a couple more cops shot around the country every day. People are now feeling that it's okay to pull a gun on a police officer and challenge him. And I don't know why society has been like this. It's never been this way, where we think it's okay to fight against our laws. But I pray to God every day for our first responders out there, paramedics, firefighters, as well, because firefighters are being fired upon too, getting randomly shot at. Paramedics are being robbed and beaten for drugs that they think they're carrying on the ambulances. So I think we've seen such a time where the crisis in America for our first responders is at a all-time risky business high. And God, I pray for these guys every single day.
Yeah, you said the word crisis, and crises, plural, come in. We've got a lot of them going on. They look different. The topic of tonight's show is another hot topic as it comes to policing, because we are also in the midst of all this. Let's not forget we have the defund the police going on.
Correct.
So we've got a national crisis. We got a border crisis. We've got mental health crisis inside our law enforcement front lines, the men and women that serve in our first responder community as a whole. And tonight we have a really very cool guest on. This gentleman is not foreign to a camera, I'll say. Yeah, used to having cameras recording his every move. And he is Ernie Stevens of Ernie and Joe, the Crisis Cops. We are talking about how to effectively handle the mental illness or mental unwell that we have in our communities, and dealing with the public, which is different. We are going to talk about how it definitely affects us as first responders. And what I want to do is want to introduce Ernie. Ernie is a now retired San Antonio police officer. He was born and raised in San Antonio. He's been married for 16 years, has 2 incredible children. He started his law enforcement career in 1992 when he joined the Terrell Hills Police Department, and he transitioned into the San Antonio Police Department in 1994. Ernie has been assigned to a wide variety of units throughout his 28-year career, helping him gain a deeper understanding of the unique struggles police encounter on a daily basis. He has served with Patrol, DWI Unit, Tactical Response Unit, Field Training, and ended his career assigned to the Mental Health Unit, where he did 12 years. And just a fantastic documentary with that, showing what Ernie did. He was one of the founding members of SAPD's Mental Health Unit, where he pioneered innovative training to provide law enforcement with a deeper understanding of citizens living with a mental health diagnosis and the real world skills necessary to assist them. Ernie is an advanced instructor and has been certified by the FBI hostage negotiation teams. Ernie has served as board director for NAMI. We're familiar with those great folks in the early 2000s. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and is currently enrolled. Hey, did you finish grad school?
No. Thanks a lot, man. Is that how we start this interview?
Wow.
He's been the subject of several documentaries, including the HBO's award-winning Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops, NBC's A Different Kind of Force, and coverage on ABC's Nightline. He is dedicated to continuing the effort to find better ways for law enforcement and the community to connect with each other. Yay, communication. What a concept. Ernie, welcome to the show.
Welcome,
Sam
Ernie.
and John, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here.
You know, I gotta start this off with, you know, you're such a mom, Sam.
I'm such a mom.
Yeah, because you were like this really cool guest, and then you scolded him for not completing grad school.
Well, it was more of a question because we'll get into the documentary where, you know, while he was a police officer, he was in school. So
no, I just trying to make light of it. Trying to make light of it.
So I guess that's good that it's kind of coming out, because that mom part of me has been absent, you know, for a long time, especially with the stresses of work and of law enforcement. And so now that I've been separated from service for a bit, able to calm down, and I'm glad to show the mom side of me. So yay, moms!
Well, it's coming out. It's definitely resonating.
Okay, good. Good. Well, Ernie, I got to tell you, if it's okay, we're gonna jump in head first here, because first of all, folks, if you don't have HBO, go get it like free for a month or whatever your free trial is, so that you can watch Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops. From the minute the show started, I was surprised. I have to say, I went into my analytical self. My husband was watching the documentary with me. Lots of questions back and forth, pausing, restarting, rewinding, going over it again. From the minute the show starts, you all talk about how you're criticized for poor tactics. And no joke, I'm watching it. My husband walks in and he's like, "Why are they sitting down with this guy?" And I was like, honey, just let it play out. You're coming in. I'll rewind. I'll show you. Because as police officers, when we're called by our community to respond, it's not the typical thing to sit down with a person who, in the case of what was going on, and I'll set the scene without, ruining the movie for everybody, but that was had some concerning behavior going on, was frightening others in the courtrooms, the area that he was in. And you all came in, you sat down, and there's two folks for all law enforcement. There's always two. It's not like a one-on-one. It's two people. So one's watching the hands. That's where I was picking you guys apart tactically. But the way you came in and completely diffused a situation where we have seen countless times it just go from bad to worse, the volatility, the aggression. Clearly, this gentleman needed assistance, and you were there to provide it. Take us through how you were able to do that successfully. I'm just going to shut up and let you talk now.
Well, I think importantly, we understand what we're dealing with, right? Joe and I have been doing this job in mental health for a very long time. We've been on thousands and thousands of mental health calls where these are the most psychotic individuals that this city has to offer, right? But we know what we're walking into. Now, do we understand that there's an element of danger? Absolutely there is. But how much of that danger is really driven by stigma. A lot of it is, right? Somebody that has a mental health crisis, why are we treating that any differently than maybe somebody that's going into a diabetic shock? They're both a medical emergency, are they not? Right. So we understand that. And we understand that people with mental health diagnoses are more likely to be a victim of crime, right, than to be a criminal themselves. So we understand the behaviors. We understand the importance of de escalation and active listening. And we understand the importance of not focusing on so much the problem, but more on the person. And if we focus more on connection instead of correction, we're going to be able to do those tactical compromises, I like to call them, right? Because if you ever go up and shake somebody's hand, is that not a tactical compromise, right? Because police officers, we don't shake hands, we don't touch, we don't hug, we don't cry, right? But we do, because we're human beings and we have emotions as well. So I think in order to capture the essence of what we do day to day in this unit, is understanding that we really need to try to make a connection with the individual that's in crisis. And the only really way to do that, Sam, is by being authentic and by being vulnerable ourselves. And I think knowing that going in is what gives us an advantage of building good rapport with somebody.
Now, when did you all see the need to go to the chief and say, hey, chief, we really need a unit that's dedicated to the mental health of the folks in our community and how to effectively deal with them?
Yeah, so I'm glad y'all are sitting down for this. So I went to the training that Houston put on in 2003, and then we had an individual from the community, a member of NAMI, a mom, came and talked about her son that has schizophrenia. And, she made a profound statement. She said, one day, one of you officers might have to show up to my house and my son's behavior is going to scare you. And you might actually end up shooting him. And I just want you to go home safe to your family. So when she made that statement, that impacted me as a parent, as a member of this community. I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't we have something in place to help her? Because she is resolved to the fact that this is going to be the outcome if she calls the police. And that's sad, right? That is sad to think my only recourse when I need the police might be a negative outcome. So with her passion and her story, that drove me. At the time, I was in a tactical unit, the tactical response unit, which is all the sexy in policing, right? All the kicking down doors, chasing cars, drugs, guns, money, gangs. And that statement, my career path took a 180, and it became all mental health 24/7 at that point. And I thought, hey, let's approach the chief. I've got a brilliant idea that I want to start a mental health unit. The problem is in policing, and John, I'm sure Sam can also attest, you're only allowed to be as smart as your rank. So if it's not leadership, if it's not the idea of leadership, your idea is not going to get very far. So what I realized very quickly was the fire department doesn't come unless there's a fire, right? So I joined NAMI, and NAMI really became the catalyst in getting the chief to sit down and meet and talk about the importance and the need of a specialized unit like a mental health unit. We're the 7th largest city in the United States. Why don't we have this? And, with a little bit of pressure from the community, he's like, hey, I know the perfect person for this unit. And that's how we got started, December 2008.
You approached this back in 2003, which was a tough time because we weren't even scratching the surface on mental health back then. We were still treating mental health calls as almost criminal. I know we did that in New York a lot, where mental health wellness were almost a criminal call, where you would go there, high tactics, everything up, and with no de-escalation in mind. And so you had a real uphill battles in 2003 and even 2008 as well. Still very young on the mental health areas in law enforcement and first responders.
Yeah. And John, to no fault of our own in law enforcement, we just didn't know any better. Right. We were doing like you're describing at the opening of the show. We're just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole and hoping it holds, right? With like immigration, same thing we were doing for mental health. we're just hoping, hey, let me put a Band-Aid on this and hope I don't get called back, because I really don't know what to do. I know how to arrest somebody, right? I'm good at that. So who was the largest mental health facility in a lot of states? It was your jails, right?
Right.
For a long time, and still are, unfortunately. So, with the development of the mental health unit and seeing the importance of it and increasing the training, what we saw was a couple of pendulums really swing. One was a decrease in the population in the jail for misdemeanor arrests that included mental health. And number two, as the number of officers went up that got the training, the use of force went down. So you could say it's correlation, causation based on the definition of use of force at the time. I would like to think it's the training myself.
Now, is this training that you're talking about, as part of the documentary, you talk about how, 60 plus hours, I mean, it's constant with tactical training with firearms and stuff like that. I mean, at that time, you only had 8 hours of, call it, communications and mental health training. When you went to the chief, how much training did you realize you needed, to even bring the idea to the chief, then continue on with the training and creating a curriculum that actually would make a difference in the department?
I love your question, Sam. So in the beginning, I went and took the 40-hour course based on the Memphis model that they created in Houston. Now, I had to bring that curriculum back and structure it based on the resources that we had in our community, right? Because there's some classes that are foundational that you want to stick to. You want to make sure that it's officer-led but community-supported. And what I mean by that is bring in your subject matter experts to teach, different personality disorders, the different diagnoses, because it does no good for a police officer to go up there and try to talk like a doctor, right? It's just not gonna work.
Really?
And then number three, the chief asked for 10% of the department to get trained, and he wanted volunteers, because when you volunteer for training, you're going to get officers that want to do that particular line of work or want that particular line of training. Well, then in 2010, he mandated the entire department get trained. So 2,300 officers mandated or being voluntold they have to do this, which created a whole nother issue in itself, because we had officers that would have rather just retired than taken this hug-a-thug type training, right? I mean, really, that's what it came down to.
Right. Okay, yeah, go ahead, John.
I was going to talk about, when you talk about the different personality disorders, you brought up schizophrenia, where you don't know where that individual is going to go. So a lot of officers fear for their lives because they don't have the knowledge or the training of what that mental illness is all about. When you hear schizophrenia, you think, oh my God, they have multiple personalities. They can come out with, and I think when we don't understand the mental disease, we can't treat that person effectively if we don't understand it.
Yeah. So with knowledge comes power, right? So what the officers had to learn was, what is mental illness? What is mental health, first of all? And it's a spectrum, right? We all have mental health. Just some of us do better than others in some days, right? But with that, there are different types of illnesses that present different ways. And we're not doctors. We're not trying to get the officers to diagnose, but we're trying to get them to recognize and also understand that people are all different, right? Some people that are depressed may look angry and not know how to express that, especially in adolescents or juveniles. They haven't learned how to really express their emotions, so they compartmentalize and it manifests as anger. Whereas in an adult, it may be you disconnect and just shut down and go into your little shell and don't want to talk to anybody, right? So it's important that we bring in the correct people, the doctors, to come in and say, this is what a borderline personality looks like. This is what bipolar disorder looks like. This is what happens when you have schizophrenia and bipolar, right? And then the important part of this is we get the students out of their seats after they've learned this, and we get them into role plays. And the role plays are conducted by licensed professional counselors or social workers from our local mental health authority, because that's all they deal with on a day-to-day basis. So they really know how to dial into these types of roles and get the officers to try to mimic what they learn downstairs in an actual crisis situation. That way we have a
Wow.
way to gauge if they understand this. And, for the officers that come in skeptical, with a lot of training, you go out on the street and you try it and it works, the program will sell itself. I don't have to go up here and try to sell the program,
Yeah.
Juju,
The role plays were incredible. I mean, I'm watching it. You covered everything from a veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and beyond with a mental illness. You also covered children in these role plays, and the officers that you highlighted that were doing the role play, and the mental health professionals that were in the room. That I saw that these officers, first of all wanted to be there. They all realized they were like a fish out of water, but they had the desire to learn, and that came across. Nobody was trying to not accept the critiques of it. They all wanted to understand how to make the situation better. And I'll go back to when the scene number 1 in that documentary of, and this is what I think that every officer should see, is the quintessential young person with a mental illness, stuff broke bad really fast. All he has is a screwdriver in his hand. He wasn't being aggressive. And the next thing you know, he's shot multiple times and he's down. And it's just like, I've been separated from law enforcement for a while, but not long enough to look at that and say, at every fiber of my being, there is no way that should have gone down like that.
Yeah. And so I'll go back to one of your statements that you made earlier about the officers looked like they were accepting the critiques. And that's because one of the topics that we cover is officer suicide, right? And that's one of the role plays they didn't show in the documentary, which I wish they would have, is we actually have an officer go in that's contemplating suicide, right? Based on a crisis. And we, in the nation last year, 239 officers committed suicide, according to bluehelp.org, right? Where 45 died in line of duty by assaults. So we're killing ourselves at a rate of 4 to 1. And during the documentary, we had 3 officers in our department commit suicide in a 16-month period. So it's time to take this subject very serious, because if we're not well ourselves, how good are we going to do at communicating right with the community? So I think because we touch on that subject and run a role play on Wednesday with that, what you were looking at was the Friday role plays in the documentary. They were already keyed in to this is why it's important, because we've buried our own, right? Because we didn't know to ask. Now transitioning back to the opening scene of the film, and for those that have not seen the film yet, I do want to put that caution out that there is a violent scene at the very beginning. So if that's a trigger, I want you to be aware of that. We always encourage people to watch the documentary in groups and you can discuss it. But, we were shown that clip during ABC Nightline's filming. And it's one of those where you hate to Monday morning quarterback anything, right? And I spoke to an officer from Dallas who gave me a little bit more background. He said, we've been there over 30 times. This individual's been aggressive in the past. So they had a little bit more history and information than I did based on just this video clip that I saw that the media showed us. So, I look at the body language. I study body language. I'm a huge fan of Joe Navarro and his body language. And you're right. I don't want to upset anybody by what I say, but if you understand body language and you understand the concept of distance and de-escalation, maybe that could have turned out a different way.
Can I jump in real quick on that, Ernie? I just want to touch on that because that scene with the screwdriver, and like I said, I only got to see about the first 30 minutes of the film. The scene with the screwdriver, and then you guys, you and Joe almost approached the same exact scenario, but the guy's holding a pen, right? Yeah. And it got this de-escalated in a different manner. Now you're talking about the guy with the screwdriver. They've been to his house over 30 times. right?
Right.
How was he treated on the first, second, third, and fourth? Maybe he was frightened of those officers, right?
6, 7, right?
So here's what my thing is that, well, maybe that guy was treated poorly and he was fearful of the police, and maybe when they came to him, he was fearful all 30 times. Maybe that first interaction with the cops made him fearful, so that's why they've constantly had violent. And like I said, not Monday morning quarterbacking, but first impressions count, and especially with somebody.
So I love that you say that. First impressions count, because the very next scene we transition to in the documentary is the footage in the courtroom, and we show up in plain clothes, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's how we roll down here, man. We're in a pair of jeans and a polo, and if it's a hot day, I'm in a t-shirt. But because you and I both know, we all know on this, your first use of force is your mere appearance. So if you're showing up, and look how officers dress nowadays. How many of them have the outer carry vest? Yep. They tuck their hands under here, and they got all the magazines and the handcuffs and the zip ties, and it looks scary. It looks scary, right? And especially if you're in a crisis and you're paranoid on top of that, whether it be drug induced or mental health, right? So just your mere appearance, your first impression, can really make or break what's going to happen, throughout this next part of trying to build rapport. And then once we realized, he had a pin, we had distance, I was actually cover in that scenario, Joe was going to be the primary. And, we have lethal force if we need it. We just, by the grace of God, we've never had to use it. But that pin was a tactical compromise, but we also told him, can you leave it here and walk out with this?
But see, and that's what I focused on in the part of that film was when you approached him, you didn't you noticed the pen, you took note of it, but it wasn't that you walked up and said, "Hey, drop that pen." You didn't come off aggressive and tell him to drop what he had in his hands. You introduced yourself, you made a connection, then almost on a friendly basis, you were like, "Hey, can you just leave that pen here?" And it was no problem, So another officer without the training, without the knowledge, without any background of mental health, may walk up and automatically focus, instead of on a person, focus on that pen as a threat, and automatically become aggressive and go, "Drop the pen." Now you've started off that interaction very poorly. So I think you guys handle it amazing.
Yeah, and thank you, John. And a lot of that, and our verbiage may change based on the scenario, right? I've had individuals holding a knife where I've had a lot of distance, but I draw a line in the sand and I say, look, I want to help you and I want you to help me understand. But as long as you're holding that knife, I can't talk to you. And I have a feeling you have a lot of important things that you want to share with me. And I'm willing to be, to listen to you. I just need you to put that down. Nobody's going to hurt you. Nobody's going to take it from you. We just want to communicate, right? So you do have to understand, that there are some viable threats out there where, you just can't let yourself get sucked into these scenarios because you want to help so bad. There's still a tactical safety issue involved where I got to make sure Joe goes home to his family and all 50 of his kids or whatever he's got now. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a whole nother documentary.
That's a whole nother story, man.
Joe has 50 kids.
Yeah, and he's going to make sure I get home to mine. So that's why, we do take tactics serious. Although you look at the film and you're thinking, what are these guys doing?
Well, it's John and I talked earlier today, and yes, taking tactics seriously, that is the difference between life and death in police work. The way you guys broke down, not the lack of tactics, but it's focusing on the person, not making. Sorry, my dog is in the background.
Is this a Christmas episode?
I know, right? Here comes Santa. Lucy. And the whole scene that you set up with, okay, here's the scenario. You've got a person in the car with a gun. And now it's what, in that situation, what do 99% of police officers focus on? The gun. Yeah. We got it. It's not It's not person who may be mentally ill, actually person we know who's mentally ill because we've been told, we have corroboration that is in fact the case. But because they have the gun, they are seen as an object, not as a person, and we must diffuse gun first. And talk a little bit about how you've got to flip that in a mental health crisis situation.
Yeah, and so that's difficult in the part in the film, you know, where you had to deal with a lady that was it was a tactical nightmare, right? She's outside in between two cars holding a gun to her head, and it's nighttime. And it's not like she did this to say, "Hey, look at me, I need attention." She waited till her husband and kids went to bed, and then she came outside to do this. So, you know, you get there and you got all these officers. It looks like Call of Duty lined up with, you know, every kind of rifle, shotgun, shield. You know, one guy had a ram. It was like, man, she's outside. Why do we need a ram? What's going on here? They were so focused on the tactical dangerousness of this one person that had a gun that wanted to kill her oneself, right? But nobody ever tried to reach out to her, the person. Nobody tried to contact her and even speak to her. The plan was already, well, let's form an echelon and march down there and start yelling commands. Well, hold on. Can't we slow down and try to communicate with her and talk to her? And that's exactly what happened. Joe made a phone call. She answered, and he was able to de-escalate using everything that we teach about active listening. And, you know, and what I love about it is, you know, in part of the documentary, we say, for officers, have you ever told anybody on a call, "Hey, I'm scared"? You know, officers don't say that. Like, we're taught to be hard. We're taught to be tough. We don't ever say we're scared. But to be honest, if you've been on this job for more than 10 minutes, have you not been scared? Like, walking up on a traffic stop is scary. Searching a building is scary, right? This job has some scary moments, but we're taught not to show it, put our mask on and hide behind that. Well, in this case, once he told her, "Look, you've got me scared, Brenda. I'm nervous. Like, I'm scared. I'm scared of what's going to happen." You know, and her response was classic. "Well, I'm not trying to scare you. What do you want me to do?" "Well, I simply want you just to put your gun down. Some tackleberry's watching you with binoculars, right? And I just want you to walk to me, and I'm going to meet you, and we're just going to talk. Nobody's going to tackle you or handcuff you." And that's exactly what happened. But you had to pump the brakes on that and get above and kind of look down from 30,000 feet up and look down and look at the entire picture of what was going on. But officer hears gun, and that's all they're responding to. And they're thinking, "Oh, gun, here we go," you know? And it's like, no, person with a gun. We're going to deal with the gun and stay safe, but we've got to deal with the person that's in crisis.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more of a patience issue that a lot of patrol officers do not have the patience because they're so amped up. They're going from one job to the next. You know, it's almost like a cattle call line. Let's get this one in. Let's get it out. So to be able to take the time and actually talk to somebody and to communicate with somebody, they just want to, boom, let's get this done. Let's get them in cuffs, get them in the car, go to the next call. You know,
that's exactly it. And how do you build rapport with somebody that way?
You can't.
You know, you can't. Yet we train every year. We have to qualify with our firearm. We have to spend a whole day at the range shooting, right? We've got to practice our tactics day, whatever that includes. But how much time do we really train every year in just learning how to talk to somebody or critically think? Because is that not 99% of what your day is going to be, is having citizens encounters with somebody that's in some type of crisis, that's lost the ability to cope with the situation and just needs you to help them recenter themselves, right? And get them back on track. So why don't we practice that a little bit more in the academies?
Well, when I got a job in New York, and back in '91, Giuliani brought in the CPOP, community policing, and you know, I was in one of the highest crime-ridden areas of Brooklyn, and you know, when I first got there, all the cops were like, "Yo, it's the us against them mentality," you know, and as I was walking a foot post. I wasn't in a patrol car speeding by the community at 30, 40 miles an hour and not interacting. I was walking a foot post on one of the most dangerous streets. and I got to interact with people and speak with people on a personal level. And you know, it's much different when you're out of the car and speaking to them and talking to them one-on-one, and you realize that it's not an us against them. It's a fear. It's a fear of them, and it's a fear of us. We both have fear against each other, and that's what makes the interaction so hard.
Yeah,
The public fears us.
Yeah, and don't we all live in the same? Yeah, we all live in the same community.
Yeah.
How can it be us against them, right?
Right.
Aren't we all supposed to be working together and trying to solve community issues that we're that we're faced with? And that's why I think as you see this paradigm shift into a big call for procedural justice, which is nothing more fancy word than community service and policing, right? You're going to see, I hope, and Chief Andy Harvey wrote a great book on this called Excellence in Policing. He was a chief out in Dallas. You're going to see more better customer service-based policing based on what you just said, John, of that community-oriented policing mindset. And that's getting out and talking to people and finding out what's going on in the community. Do you trust us enough to tell us, and can we prove to you that authority and that power that you're giving us as a police officer, we're going to show you as a gift, giving back to you exactly what we're going to do with that trust, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So let's dive into a really hard question now. The chain of command, the higher ups, the politicians that are involved are in some cities not giving the police an opportunity to do just that. They are taking patrol units, putting licensed social workers or clinical health folks in out there with our police officers. And watching the documentary and seeing what's possible and what should be a national model, well, the rug just got pulled out from underneath that. That's been chucked in the dumpster for now. This whole mindset of, well, we can't train our police officers to be mental health and crisis experts. No, what we're not going to do that. We're going to cut the training back. We're going to have our budget slashed. Let's just get the social workers out there. I first gut reaction from you when you hear that.
So to me, the first thing that comes to mind is vicarious liability, right? If this training is available and you're not providing that to your rank and file, are you not liable for this? Now, can you do a co-responder unit and be successful? I think in a lot of cases you can. I just came out from Fort Collins, Colorado, where they do that. Now they're more of a rural area out there, but they work very closely with their local mental health authority. They ride together with an officer. The officer clears the scene for safety, and then the officer shuts up and gets out the way and lets the clinician do their job, right? Which is not a bad response. But when I see what they did in Harlem and they said, hey, no police officers are going to respond to mental health crises, only social workers, then it takes me back to what happened in Seattle, where a social worker responded by herself and was stabbed and killed. So when you develop these models, especially if you're trying to build sustainability, you got to look at what is the best possible model out there. With us, what we did was we would have clinicians go to the scene, but not approach. We would go up, clear the scene, do an assessment ourselves to say, are they homicidal? Are they suicidal? Is there a presence of weapons? Is there an imminency of danger? If not, hey, clinicians, come on up and let you do your assessment. And then you can help us navigate what's the best treatment facility we need to go to if we need to do an involuntary commitment. So you really have to look at what resources are in your community.
In Fort Collins, are the clinicians actually riding with the officers?
Yes.
Now, to me, me and Sam have discussed this. Now, I like the way you just said it, where the clinician arrives, stays away from the scene, and the cops pull up. But if they're riding 100% with the officers, say the officer gets a gun run, or if he gets a burglary in progress, now he's got to worry about the clinician as a third party, doesn't he?
Well, in Fort Collins, that co-responder unit, they only respond to the mental health calls. So they're not going to get something outside of that realm unless it's patrol saying, hey, we showed up to this disturbance, but it's actually mental health related. Can you all come over here? So they're not going to get runs to robberies or
But they're
sexual
still
assault.
but they're still in a marked police car.
They are.
Okay,
So if they see something,
you know how many times the shit magnet happens, and
you're that guy, huh?
you're that, yeah, and you gotta respond, or someone takes a shot at a police car. How many times have we seen these ambushes happen, and they're escalating across the nation? I think putting a clinician in a marked police car or a patrol car is actually putting their life and the life of the officers in danger, because now they're going to protect somebody else.
How about the officer down call? They push the button, they respond. The clinician is trained in a certain way, and when the clinician sees enough the violence against officers, I could foresee there being an issue where we got to tend to the officer, and the clinician being like, wait, but the person that did this might have a mental health issue, so let me go over here. And then you got cops over here, you got the mental the clinician over there, and not nothing's been safe, deemed safe yet.
Right. Yeah. And I think you can control that with policies and procedures. I would think a lot of that. My biggest concern is if you're riding one officer, one clinician, to me, that's a little dangerous, because when you arrive on scene, you don't know how many people are going to be involved, right? You're going to have to worry about your consumer or your patient, but now you also have to worry about the safety and protection of your clinician,
right,
along with anybody else that may be at the scene. When Joe and I would arrive, we have each other, and we can focus in and really de-escalate whatever we needed to do, and then bring a clinician in when we knew it was safe. But even at that point, there's still two of us at the scene. These co-responder units where you're seeing one officer and one clinician are usually because of manpower issues, and they just don't have the manpower to double up officers and then have a clinician follow them out to calls.
Yeah. Now I want to focus on, because you and Joe, you don't need a clinician with you.
Joe always
well, yeah. So Joe, well, I guess it depends how many Red Bulls that he drinks, but the scene with the woman on the bridge, that just blew me away.
Don't give it away. I didn't see that part yet.
I know. Well, sorry, John, I'm going to ruin this, because it was so. You guys roll up, and this woman is like ready to launch herself. Her body position, she is over the railing, straddling it on both sides. The training, how many years of training had you guys had with that call?
Well, up at that point, we had probably been on the unit at least 10 years, and we'd handled probably 25, 30 jumpers. But what was a little, I guess, unsettling for me is we had just had somebody jump in front of us about a month before that. And it was when we put on a harness. The person had been up on the bridge for hours and had committed a murder and another aggravated assault, had shot themselves in the foot themselves, and were bleeding, very cold, been sitting up on this bridge for hours. And we knew at some point we were just going to have to make that approach. Problem was, the individual had a cell phone and was getting updates from the news. And when he saw that his wife had been killed, that's when he just looked back at us and said, well, it's now or never. And then just jumped before we could even get the harness attached to the door frame, right? So with this one, I wanted to approach this one slowly again. Again, my great tactics, I sit down, right? Sorry, John. Spoiler.
On the curb, John. He sits down on the curb.
I'm scared of heights, man.
Like in front of a New York City bodega. He's just like, I'm just going to sit down.
Yeah, somebody bring me a cup of chata or something, right? But I'm a little nervous around heights. So I probably couldn't have got any closer if I wanted to. But again, we know what we're dealing with. We know if we can slow our approach and show that we're non-threatening. What I like about that scene is we're working off duty that night and we're in uniform.
Right.
So that goes to show that if you slow down and practice the skills that you're taught in CIT training and you feel proficient with them, it can be done in uniform, right? It took a little longer, I felt, because all she saw was two cops coming up and she just kept yelling, "Don't tase me."
Right.
Well, what does that tell you, right?
She's been
probably had
tased
a negative,
before.
yeah, she's probably had a negative run-in with the police in the past. So our uniform was working against us right off the bat, and I recognize that. And that's really one of the reasons I sat down. I wanted to show, hey, I'm more than 20 feet from you, and I'm not a threat. So
Yeah.
that's why I did what I did.
And it was incredible to watch when you sat down. What she was like focused on your tasers. You were like, I promise, we're not going to tase you. And then you said, hey, I'm scared because, and then you explained to her why you were scared. And then you could see, I mean, now the camera is very far away. So as you're watching the documentary, you can't see her face, but you can see her entire body language. Everything just started to relax.
Yeah, it did. And so she, again, spoiler alert, John, she comes and sits down for a minute, right? I'm trying to talk to her, but she's so paranoid. She jumps back up, walks over to the bridge, and gets ready to go again. And you hear Joe say, no, don't do that, not in front of us. And it started the dialogue again, right? Where she just kept hearing voices. And I love what Joe said, because she said, I'm broken. And I said, you know what? You might be broken, but you're fixable. You know, we're going to get through this. And she said, well, the voices are just telling me to jump. And then Joe said something, I loved it. He said, you know, Kendra, you're stronger than the voices. Yes, you are. And he instilled into her some self-confidence. And that's when I saw her leg come back down again. I thought, we got her. We got her now. It's just a matter of time. So, but everybody's different and unpredictable. So you just never know. You know, I'm very fortunate that turned out.
Now, let me ask you with that scene, and spoiler alert, I didn't see it yet, but I will watch it. Do you feel that if maybe, because me and Sam talk about the wrong words could throw somebody off a bridge, you know, instead of bringing them back? Do you think if that response was from untrained officers, that circumstance would have been, could have turned out much different?
Well, I know it could have, because we responded to a jumper one day that was calling and was on the phone with the dispatcher saying, hey, tell my wife and my kids I love them. I'm going to jump. And the dispatcher, as we were arriving on scene, said, you don't want to do that. That's stupid. You know?
Oh.
Yeah. So I could hear him yelling, who are you calling stupid? I'm like, uh-oh. You know, we had to approach that and say, you know what? Hang up. It's you and I now. It's you and I, and you're going to be the one in charge of the conversation. So tell me what's going on. Right. And he's like, you're a dispatcher. You tell her I'm not scared. You tell her I'm not stupid. I'm like, I'll tell her whatever you want. You know, that's fine. But just, it's hard to hear you with all the traffic. Can you just come over here and we'll communicate? And so I know it can. The wrong words can be.
See, and the wrong word could really throw somebody off the edge. I mean, even if they take it out of context, like she's saying that, you know, I'm sure the dispatcher was saying, well, that's stupid. Don't jump. But
Right.
he took it as, you're calling me stupid. So even taking a simple word out of context can have devastating results.
And, you know, we teach that because, you know, a lot of people they always say, okay, right? Okay. Like after you say something, okay. And, you know, we tell them, look, be careful not to validate negative behaviors. If they're up there and they say, hey, I'm going to jump, and you're like, okay. Yeah. Like you're not telling them it's okay, but they're like, wow, you really care. You know, so, you know, we tell them, be very careful if you've got phrases that you say over and over. Just try to get away from the I understands and the okays and really just focus in and not worry about what you're going to say next. You know, listen to what they're saying and empathize with them, right? Make that connection.
And now, this has got to be. Sorry, John, go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say that, and with that, because we are so conditioned into talking the way we talk, this training should be yearly, should be updated all the time, and it's got to be practiced, or we forget it, or we can't.
They are diminishing skills, and we're fortunate in Texas, where you know we teach the 40-hour block of CIT training to every cadet, but when they graduate, in order for them to get their next level of licensing, to get their intermediate's license, they have to take what's called the Sandra Bland 1850 course, which was named after Sandra Bland, who committed suicide in jail after being stopped by a state trooper. And that is all about de-escalation and recognizing mental health as well. So really in any 2-year period, you can have an officer that has 80 plus hours of mental health training. So I'm glad they take it serious here in Texas and mandate it.
Yeah. So how difficult when you're going through the CIT training is handling the suicidal situation of a first responder of your own part of that training?
Yeah, it's difficult because with the young officers, they walk in and they keep wanting to say, sir or ma'am, sir, we're here to help you, sir. And it's like, stop, like, quit doing that. And then I'll take them out to the memorial wall. I say, look up here, look at all these officers that have died on this department. Okay. They're not sir, they're not ma'am. They're our brothers and sisters up here. And we're gonna treat them and talk to them as if they are. So stop all that and let's start over. Right. Where the veteran officers, they come in. I say, look, if you recognize the officer, then you recognize them for the role play. And sure enough, they will normally recognize them and be like, hey, Phil, what's going on, man? Your wife called or whatever the scenario is. And it's just like that emergency tone button. When you hit that emergency tone, how many officers come to your aid? A lot, right? This is the same thing. It's just they're hitting their emotional E-tone. And I'm not leaving them until I know they're safe. And that's the same kind of mindset we're trying to instill in the officers.
Right. Now, part of what we do on this show is, we talk about the stigma that a lot of that first responders are dealing with. And that's one of the big reasons they don't ask for help, whether they've seen it in the media where, John and I had talked about this before. Classic case. NYPD, I need help. Gun and badge, go home. Okay, I can only imagine how the conversation went. Goes home, didn't dawn on you that he might have a gun at home, and hours later they find him. He completes suicide. Okay,
well, I'm sure.
So you've got all of these stories and examples of why I shouldn't ask for help. And then you've got the 40-hour incredible training that you do with cadets, and how do you marry the two? And it goes back to, in the documentary, there's a class that you're teaching, and there's the fresh faces, and I say the salty faces, the guys, like me and John, we've been on for a while. Well, sorry, John, you more than me.
I just want to know where in Texas. Yeah. I want to, I don't want to call this out, but Ernie, when you say the state of Texas, and I thought Sam was leading into a spot that, because like I said, I just went through an issue where none of that training that you're talking about, and I live here in Texas, was shown, was generated, was forthcoming in any way, shape, or form. So
and they had all the information. They had all the information.
They took it to a different level. And I was wondering, when you say Texas, where is this training being given? Is it being given to small departments, or is it being given to just like they say Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Houston, or smaller departments getting this training as well?
Right. So when we talk about the CIT training, the 40-hour course, that's the Memphis model. That is the preferred gold standard that you want to try to follow. However, nationally, the average size police department is 8 officers. So can you send, an officer off to a 40? You just can't do it.
Right.
So what you do is you search and find on the internet through your state licensing facility. Here it's TCOL. Hey, what can I take that can check the box off that I've had mental health training? And in Texas, it's 16 hours with an 8-hour refresher every 4 years, right? So that's all they're required to get.
So they're required to take it. It's flat out required. It's not
right. That's the 16 hours is.
Okay, so then in a scene like what happened with John, maybe one officer, from the way you told the story, maybe one officer had the training, listened to everybody that was telling him exactly what was going on with you. And then I don't know how the other person who outranked him didn't have that training, that completely said, F that, we're not taking him to JPS, which is what should have happened. You're going to jail.
And that's what they did, and I think you hit it right on the head, Sam, is that, like I said, there were 30 officers out in front of my house, all with ARs and SWAT teams and a whole bit. And one officer is the one that called me brother. And it's funny you said that, Ernie. There's only one. Everybody else was screaming at me, commands and everything else. I had 30 different commands coming at me. So, but I think it was the upper command made those decisions.
Oh, yes. I guarantee you they did.
And they were not. And I think that's where the buy-in comes in, that who knows what the upper command wanted or what their mindset was at that moment in time.
They were sick. They were sick that day of the 16-hour training.
Yeah, I mean, they can mandate their officers and rank and file to go to the training. I've only had one assistant chief come through the training. But when she did,
there you go.
She said this was the best training I'd had in 35 years. Had I had this 35 years ago, I'd be a totally different person today. So when we talk about stigma, Sam, getting back to what you were saying, and John, I'm sorry that happened to you, man. I can't even imagine. Yeah, I cannot imagine what you must have been going through. And if you ever want to talk offline, I'll make sure we do that.
Love it.
And Sam, getting back to your point about stigma, what you're doing on your show right now is so important because you've opened up the conversation about mental health, first responders, and stigma, right? If I ask John, hey, do you want to go bowling Tuesday night with me? And he says, man, Ernie, I'd love to, but I got to go see my therapist. That should not shock my conscience, right? I should say, okay, cool, maybe next week. Instead, our officer's not going and saying, hey, did you know John sees a therapist?
Right.
I wonder what's wrong with him, right? So we really must do a better job at building a culture of wellness within our police departments. And it has to start when you're a rookie, and it has to follow you through retirement. And there's a whole way to do it, but not a lot of departments are willing to step up and say, wellness is important. Look at your recruiting pamphlets. What do you see when you open them? A SWAT member, a K-9 member, right?
Right.
Where does it talk about in there that, hey, we've got a wellness program for you in place because we know that you could experience up to 188 traumatic events in 20 years, and we want to be there for you. That's the kind of training pamphlet or recruiting pamphlet I want to see. If I'm applying for a job, I don't care about SWAT and their dogs and all that crap. I want to know, are you going to be there for me when I need you? Let's start recruiting that way, and maybe we'll get a better, instead of your live PD and cop people, maybe we'll get actual recruits that want to help and serve their community.
Yeah, one of the phrases that you guys use throughout the documentary, and I just love this, is I see you.
Yeah, that was Joe. Joe did a TED Talk, and it's on YouTube. I encourage you to Google his name, Joe Smarro, I see you. And really what it is saying, you don't have to lie to me, and you don't have to pretend with me because I see you. You don't have to say you're okay when you're not, because I'm authentically going to become vulnerable for you because I want you to see me as well. And when you do that, there's a connection that takes place, because with the HBO documentary is not a how-to film. It's not a blueprint film, right? It's a film on human connection and the power of that and what can be accomplished if you would just change your mindset, take off your mask, become a human being when you're trying to help somebody else. And that's what the film's about. That's the essence of it.
I love that. I want to see that TED Talk.
Yeah, it almost watching part of the TED Talk that was featured in the film, and then replaying over in my head all of the not only the role plays but the real life that you guys were going through. The thing that connected for me with that, it's both me talking to fellow first responders and me talking to somebody who may be in crisis. You have to look at them that first as a person who is injured, and that this could be your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your uncle. It's take out that there's a young man who is a paranoid schizophrenic. You know this. You have the information. Young man, paranoid schizophrenic. We've been here before. We've been here multiple times. Who is not being aggressive with the body language in any way, with the young man's mom standing right there.
Yeah.
And the complete lack of consideration that went down in that for me as a mom.
Yeah.
And I have a younger sister. I have nephews. I mean, I could not reconcile the emotion and like I said, I don't like to Monday morning quarterback either. But I couldn't reconcile, like, what are I've been separated from the job for so long. What are you all 30 times to the house? I don't care. What are you all not seeing about this young man?
Right. And
I did not go through this in the Secret Service. We did not have this training.
Yeah.
It's just like me as a human being.
Yeah.
What do you not see about this situation? How do you not empathize with the Kendra who's 1 foot off like she's gonna go?
Yeah. And I'll bring it home a little closer to that, because in the film, Joe talks about his own diagnosis, right, of PTSD and depression, right? So Joe was going through a very difficult time, right? And at times he was my little brother, where I had to look after him and make sure, hey, he had a bad night last night. He came to work. He didn't sleep. He's got a lot going on. I need to look out for him. And then there's days where he's my big brother. Hey, Ernie, you should go back to school and get your degree, right? But when I saw him get into treatment and he went to the VA and he started seeing a therapist, it was like a whole new person blossomed, right? It's like, hey, who is this guy all of a sudden? He's charismatic. He's funny. He's connecting to people. Like, I'm just going to start shutting up on these calls. And I mean, I don't know where this guy came from. It was like an overnight thing. But that's because he recognized, right? He recognized there was an issue there. He wasn't worried about what was going to be said. And what's funny was when ABC Nightline rode with us, they asked him, and it's on YouTube, they asked him, have you ever had suicidal thoughts yourself? And he said, yes, I have. And more than once. The next day I got called into the chief's office and they said, hey, do you feel safe riding with him? We think he may need a fitness for duty. And I'm like, you're just now asking me this? Like, he's talking about something that happened years ago and he's in treatment now and he's doing better. And he's not afraid to tell his story because he's hoping that if just one person sees this and gets the help they need, then maybe they won't think about suicide. But man, the stigma and the leadership was just like ready to pluck him away from me. And it was insane. So you make so many good, valid points that, can lead to a whole nother 2 hours of discussion.
Yeah, well, we're definitely in agreement where there has to be a uniform national standard. We are losing police officers to suicide. We are seeing our police officers and entire departments not know how to deal with mental illness crisis well at all. Yes, some better than others. It's a whole culmination, because when you look at the big picture, how you treat the members of the public, it is really, you can say, no, I'd never treat my brother or sister in blue like that. But you know what? You just said exactly.
Right.
You gave 2 scenarios of what is going on behind closed doors. There's that, well, I don't know. It's like, hey, you put on that uniform. It's the brotherhood, the sisterhood in blue, that thin blue line. And we've got to continue to walk it together. We can't decide one day because somebody said something, we're going to step off and violate a trust. Okay? You wouldn't want it to happen to you. We got to decide as men and women in first responder land that we can't do that to our own.
Yeah. And, John said it earlier. He said, it's a we against, it's an us against them, where you're acting like there is a line there. And then you just mentioned that thin blue line, but we should be on it together. There should not be, we shouldn't see a separation on the other side of that line, right? This line should be wavy and in all different shapes and directions, right? Because we're embedded in the community, and better cops will make for better communities.
Exactly.
We just have to be well on the inside. And with what's gone on in the last 16 months in this nation, this is a hard profession to get into. I've talked to officers that said, you know what, I'd rather just park my car, answer my calls, and then come back to this parking lot. Because the minute I'm proactive, anything could happen.
Yep.
And I hate to see that mindset, because we need good police officers. We need those that are out there being proactive and fighting against crime. But we also need to show legitimacy within our communities to show that we can be trusted as well.
And we need the leadership to trust.
Well, we need court systems too. We need our court systems too, because a lot of cops are now afraid to be proactive. We just had a grand jury indict an officer who was getting pushed and punched, and he maced her. He used his pepper spray on her during this incident, and the grand jury indicted him on assault.
Ridiculous.
Video cam shows that she was pushing him and aggressively going after him, and he de-escalated it by pepper spraying her. But the grand jury found that he is guilty of assault, and now we get a lot of young officers that are going to go, I'm not going to do anything. You're
right. Yeah,
I'm not going to go to jail for doing my job or trying to protect myself.
Yeah, it's a tough call for a profession right now. If you're thinking about getting into law enforcement right now, really consider the pros and cons, and think about the type of officer you're going to be, and definitely do something I never did. Think about self-care early on in your career, because I'm paying the price for it in small ways, some bigger than others, because I wasn't prepared for what I was going to see in this career, and I didn't do a good job of protecting myself, or my family.
Let me add on to that too. Not only protecting yourself, if you're looking into a career in law enforcement, look at the department you're joining, because look at the membership that's on there, because you could switch from wanting to be that good officer and really be swayed into being a bad one. So like San Antonio is being proactive with the mental health capabilities. So they're a department that cares. We have departments out here that we know care about their mental health of their officers. So do some due diligence on the department that you want to join as well.
Yeah, so we're spreading. I helped to spread the word about the documentary last night to our local PD here. We happened to be in the same location and saw the chief. So we're hoping to get into that department here soon to do some training. And he was he had heard of you guys, but had not seen the documentary. And I said, it's worth the 90 minutes. And I hope that you'll be open to possibly bringing this to our town, because every department needs it, and it's not just for the health of our officers, it's for the health of the community. So Ernie, any parting words to everybody listening out there?
Well, if you are interested in a screening and you're a police department, or really any organization, if you'll just reach out to ernieandjoethefilm.com. The screenings are free, and the film director will be happy to bring that screening to your police department and then set up a Zoom. Hopefully me and Joe will both be available. We can come in and kind of talk about the film and the establishment of mental health units. But what I want to just also say to your listeners is, if you're a community member, please don't give up on your police department. It's a tough job that they're trying to do. I'm praying that this documentary is shown at every police academy, and they see that the importance of the connection between the police department and the community, especially the needs of mental health that we're seeing now in the United States. The pandemic caused and is still causing all kind of problems with mental health, and we just want to do the best job we can to be there for you and for you to be able to trust us.
Great. And you said that's ernieandjoethefilm.com.
That's it. Thank you. Yes.
Awesome. Put that out right now.
I was gonna ask you about the screening on the cost, because I saw on the website right under the director's comments about you can request a screening. And Sam, I was actually going to bring this up to you, that we could probably get a smaller theater to host a law enforcement screening of the film here in Dallas. And instead of people going, they'll say, "Oh, I don't have HBO or whatever." Maybe we could host a private screening soon in one of the theaters here. Invite our local law enforcement officers to watch it, and maybe have Ernie and Joe come in and do a Q&A. Maybe that's something we could look into through Mad Radio.
Yeah, let me know. Bring in your local mental health authority, all your stakeholders. The fire department, paramedics. I mean, we're all responding to the same call. So, great idea. We've done that. With the film festival. We traveled all over the United States for 2 years now, and the response has always been positive. Even in New York, John, it was positive. And
you got great offices in New York.
And I even said I was a Red Sox fan, man. I almost messed it up, man.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. These guys.
Yeah,
these guys.
There's a couple of things in New York. Don't say you're a Red Sox fan. Don't say Chicago pizza is better than New York.
And as soon as you say y'all, that's it.
That's it.
They know where you're from.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, well, thank you so much for spending the time. I'm looking at the time right now. This was fantastic with us tonight. We for sure will be in touch and look forward to connecting y'all's message to a lot more departments in and around the Dallas area where John and I are from, because we definitely recognize the need is there. And just to view the film and be able to ask you questions, I mean, it's worth the time for sure.
Yes.
Well, thank you for what y'all are doing and continuing the conversation. I'm totally indebted to you. Thank you for
Thank you, Ernie. Appreciate it. Tell
Thank
Joe we
you.
said hello.
Will do.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Wow. What an incredible show. This was such an impactful and incredible show. Ernie, I mean, he just breaks it down to be real, tells it like it is. Ernie and Joe, thefilm.com for more information. Let's not let this, go on. It doesn't have to go on anymore. There's help from the people that walk the walk and talk the talk. They've been there, done that. And to everybody listening, you're not alone in your own mental health and mental wellness journey. These guys are here for you as well. And, speaking of guys being there for you, as I scroll through the, where's our thing? I'm getting used to using this. Here we go.
Multitask.
Yes. So, I always tell people I can't type and talk. Apparently I can't even push a button on a mouse and talk. A badgeofhonor.com. It's what John and I do. It's our passion. With Jeff and John Edmondson, we can come into your department, PTS and suicide awareness for your officers. Upcoming workshop, Friday, April 23rd, 0800 to 1600. 8 hours of TCOL is available for that course. And just like Ernie said, we're going to tell you our stories, but we're not the experts. And that's why we have experts to deal with the specific mental health issues that know what all the words mean, the big long words, because they got letters behind their name. That's what they do. And it's just an honor and a pleasure to be able to come together to deliver that in an 8 hour for right now, because we know we're going to go a lot bigger than this, hopefully next year, but in an 8 hour platform that will allow a lot of folks to attend. So if you want to come, it's in Rowlett, Texas. Go to abadgeofhonor.com. It's right there on the screen, and you can register for the workshop. The link is right there. And if you are looking to support us, you can now do that because we are a Texas nonprofit.
That's right.
So I have to actually still post the certificate, the picture of the certificate. So if you go on to abadgeofhonor.com, you'll see the donate button under the Mad Radio tab. We're going to be doing some moving stuff around with the website, but right now you click there, you can donate. All of the money goes to putting on these workshops. 100% goes to the workshops to take care of our first responders out there so they can be the best officers they can for themselves, best first responders for themselves, for their family members, and ultimately for their community. And if you want to support Mad Radio in kind of a unique way, it's at least I've been told it's the most unique way. Now, with what's going on craziness, get your Texas license to carry. Right here is the website, carryintexas.com. Get your Texas license to carry, folks. You got to protect yourself because we got some stuff coming out of DC that's just making everybody go like the meme, huh? You know, hey, get your license, be prepared, and it'll all be good. And that's also how you support the show. And just want everybody to know that you are absolutely not alone in your journey, that we are always here at A Badge of Honor and Mad Radio. We've got your back, and so appreciative every week to our audience that continuously tunes in. Hey, if you're listening on YouTube, thank you so much. Jump on over to our Facebook page, get connected with us there. And if you're watching on Facebook on either the Mad Radio channel or the Badge of Honor, A Badge of Honor channel, do us a huge jump on over to our YouTube channel, which is at Mad Radio Texas, and follow us over there. The more followers we have, or as YouTube calls them, subscribers, we're not selling you magazines, we get to do more cool things with the YouTube platform. So please, we're asking you to do that to help support. To all the first responders, everybody on the front lines, all of our folks at the border, we love you. We're praying for you every single day. John, take us home, and then I'll play the video of our partners.
You know, I can't top what Ernie said, but you know what? I posted it today on my Facebook, and I stand by it. Is we have to make our own mental health a priority. So God bless everybody. Today is not the day to give up. Thank you, Sam.
Amen. Till next week.
All right.